Hello everyone, it's Vanessa. Welcome back to my channel. I thank you for being here. And to cap off the winter season, I thought I'd do something a little different and talk about everything you should know before visiting beautiful Banff. This place really is a once-in-a-lifetime experience, pretty much a year-round endless playground that's the size of some countries, which means it's very easy to make mistakes when planning a visit because there's just so much to choose from. But in today's video, I hope you can learn from my mistakes and help you have the best possible vacation, whether you've been to Banff already, are planning a trip, or even just curious and considering one in the distant future. I'm sure this video will help you have the best possible stay. And for additional travel tips and quick reviews following any recent resort stays, you can follow me on my Passport Pages Travel Instagram, link in the description below. I'm very grateful for every single one of you. So without further ado, let's head to the winter wonderland of Banff. So let's begin by talking about where to start your trip. You have two options, Edmonton International and Calgary. I actually wanted to fly into Edmonton because I have family there, but I later found out that was a huge mistake. And that's because when you fly into Calgary, you can get to and from Banff in just an hour and a half, and it's a much calmer airport as well, so win-win. There's rarely a line at security check-in, everything is just very smooth, and if you needed another reason, it's almost always cheaper, which you wouldn't expect. So closer, easier, and cheaper. There is, however, one reason I'd recommend flying into Edmonton instead, besides having family there, and that's if you'd like to visit Jasper National Park, which is another incredibly beautiful spot to visit. Even the town of Jasper itself is wonderful. So if you want to fly in one airport and out another, that could work. Just remember that one-way flights can be more expensive. But probably my biggest mistake was not knowing to visit and stay in Canmore. You know, everyone who's been dreaming of visiting Banff envisions a stay at the world-famous Banff Springs or even Fairmont Chateau Lake Louise, but they've gotten very pricey, beginning at $1,100 a night during peak winter months, not inclusive of course. Plus, Banff gets very crowded in the winter. Banff Avenue can get elbow to elbow, so if you'd like to avoid both, I suggest staying in Canmore 15 minutes away. You're definitely going to want to rent a car, but it feels much homier if that makes sense, and you get much more of an authentic local experience without all the tourism. Plus, it's closer to Calgary, so based on my first tip, a bit of a shorter drive from the airport after you land. At the very least, make a day of it and visit, but if you'd like to save quite a bit of cash, stay in one of their more affordable guest houses and hotels sprinkled around town. Stone Ridge Mountain Resort is a good one. Will they have all the bells and whistles and luxury of the Banff properties? No, but you're spending between a quarter and a third of the price, which is quite a bit of savings. Plus, the town also has much more affordable restaurants and grocery stores for stocking up to stretch the budget, which also really helps. My next tip may be a bit of a surprise, but yes, the touristy spots are worth it. So we're talking Lake Louise, Moraine Lake, Peyto Lake, all must visits. My video footage doesn't do them justice for just how breathtaking they are in person, truly. Now, the downside of all that beauty is, of course, popularity, and these spots definitely get swamped during high season, unfortunately. Crowds start to get bad at 9 a.m., so set your alarms early, no sleeping in. I actually found out that 85% of visitors don't venture more than 2 kilometers from the parking lot. How crazy is that? But while I dislike crowds just as much as the next person, I still say it's worth it to see these sites, especially the lakes. What I will advise is to go see them once, get as many pictures and as much footage as possible in a short amount of time, and then go to less popular areas like waterfowl lakes to escape the crowds. But of course, another way to avoid the crowds is knowing when you should visit. So first of all, you're in the Canadian Rockies, so the scenery is stunning year-round. So whether you're there to ski and snowboard or hike and camp, it's more than worth a visit year-round. So just want to get that common misconception out of the way. So it really comes down to your personal preference. If you're looking for a winter wonderland experience, then visit between the months of December through February. Now would actually be ideal. However, if you're looking for sunshine and longer days, that's a big consideration as the sun sets around 10:30, even 11 p.m. in the summer, so you get a lot more experience in your day. And in that case, I'd suggest the months of July and August. If you're looking for the cheapest rates, you'll want the low season, which will be the months of March, April, and November. And finally, your shoulder months will be May, June, September, and October. So I can't definitively say the best months to visit because there are pros and cons to each season. But if you're specifically looking to avoid crowds and in turn higher prices, I'd book during the months of March, April, or November. And speaking of time of year, this may seem obvious, but you'd be surprised how many visitors forget that you need to wear layers year-round. And I'll add, if you're not prepared to do so, you could have a very unpleasant stay. Since the weather here can change at a moment's notice year-round, you want to bring packable jackets and coats, sweaters, hats, and dress every morning with layers that you can easily take off. And you'll find that visitors wear hiking clothes even in the nicest restaurants, so you won't stick out anywhere. And my last packing tip, you'd be surprised how many people try to hike in sneakers. Not a good idea at all, so be sure to pack hiking shoes or boots for safety. You can buy them in local shops, of course, but you don't want to have to do that. Trust me, very pricey. And speaking of shopping, don't buy water. This is another thing you'll see a lot of guests doing, buying big cases of bottled water, but the tap water is perfectly safe. And honestly, some of the best tasting there is as it comes from deep underground wells. So buying it is just a waste of money and plastic. If you'd like to go the extra step for peace of mind, bring a refillable water bottle that purifies for an extra step if you'd like. But again, skip the cases. It's one of the only ways you can save money here, so take advantage of it. And speaking of money, yes, you will need cash. Use the Canadian dollar. Of course, values fluctuate, but generally speaking, if you're an American looking at prices in Canada, you will be getting a bit of a discount despite prices being slightly higher. And while the US dollar is accepted by many of the tour operators and restaurants, you'll be getting a pretty bad exchange rate if you do so. And frankly, most locations don't have US dollars on hand to exchange, so you'll often get a one-to-one exchange rate. So either pull local currency from an ATM or use credit cards. And while you won't need much cash on hand, you will need some to tip your guides, dining servers, etc. Most tour operators are tipped 10% of the tour cost, so be sure to budget for that, in addition to the standard 20% for servers as well. Many visitors forget, and you don't want to be one of them, so I'd suggest $200 to $300 should be sufficient for the average stay. This next topic is probably the most discussed thing I've seen on social media when it comes to visiting Canada and Alaska, and believe it or not, it's about bear spray, to purchase or not to purchase. And this is not coming from me, but most locals in Banff say yes, you should purchase a canister. It'll be about 50 Canadian dollars, but more than worth it for peace of mind. The trailheads will have notices and guides advised to make noise by banging poles, talking, whistling, clapping, singing, especially when you're near blind bends and corners and can't see what's on the other side. Busier trails, you don't really need to do so, but have that spray on you just in case, and they also advise to make sure it's easily accessible and not at the bottom of your backpack. You, of course, cannot fly with it, which is why I said to buy in one of the local shops, and chances that you'll need it are very small. But it's like insurance, there for an emergency and peace of mind, but fingers crossed it shouldn't be necessary. So I hope you enjoyed this type of video, which is certainly a change from my usual, but I just had so many tips to share with you all that I thought that if I helped even one of you planning a Banff stay at any point in the future, it would be worth it. And for even more travel and resort tips and reviews, be sure to check out my Passport Pages travel Instagram. I have a lot of quick and easy exclusives there, and I hope to see you all very soon. Bye, guys.